Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Del and welcome to Politics in Perspective. I think we have another great show for you. We're going to open up talking about what I think Trump should do in 2026 in my Substack article, which is Trump should use his foreign policy strategy with dealing with Democrats. I'll explain that to you, but in the meantime, I hope you join me on Substack. There's still time, by the way, to get my books, which are over my shoulder, The Divided Era and the Lessons of the American Civilization for a Christmas Present. Our difference maker interview in segment two is with retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt. He's going to cover the world, but mainly Venezuela. What's the end game? And I think you're really going to enjoy this particular interview. We're going to wind up in the political roundup with the meaning of Tennessee, which I think flat out is not being told to you by the mainstream media or even Fox News or others. And then we'll talk about the California governor's race. Never seen anything quite like it. And then I'll finish up with a special comment about Gavin Newsom, who is Gavin Newsom. So let's just get started with my opening statement. And that relates to President Trump. I wrote a piece saying Trump should use his foreign policy strategy to deal with the Democrats in 2026. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about his foreign policy strategy. You know, Trump is a deal maker, but he isn't just a deal maker. He has a strategy with his deals, and he tries to create leverage points. How do you create leverage points in foreign policy? Well, in any negotiation, including foreign policy, you have what you want and your backup position. Your backup position in a deal, if you want to buy something, is well, okay, I can buy it from you, but if you don't give me what you want, I can go get it somewhere else, and you won't be as relevant because of it. So let's look at Hamas. What he did with Hamas is marginalize it. He marginalized Iran. How did he do that? Well, he let Israel, of course, have leeway in attacking Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. We, of course, attacked Iran, and Iran was substantially weakened. He then told the Arab states and others, look, the game isn't going to be Iran for long, certainly not going to be Hamas, and it won't be Hezbollah. You don't have to worry as much about them, so you can take a chance and move forward with true peace. And importantly, Trump said, the game isn't who wins between Israel and Hamas. Israel's going to win, but that's not the game. The game is the future of the whole Middle East. How can you make money and do better in the world forever when we get past Iran versus the Middle East? Do you remember when he said, I'm going to take over and redevelop Gaza or something to that effect? And he got jeered by all these people. What he was doing was setting in their minds that the issue isn't Hamas Israel. It's the future of the world. It's the future of the Middle East. And he got them thinking about that and their role in that. And after all is said and done, Hamas isn't who they were, very weakened. Hezbollah, very weakened. Iran, very weakened. They marginalized those people and set a different goal. And that goal is this Middle East peace and the extensive peace plan. Now let's talk about China. America, stupidly, at foreign policy has included becoming dependent on its enemies. No civilization has successfully done that in history. Think about the American Revolution. What's the first thing England did? Create an embargo against us. England's fight at wars with France. What's the first thing they do? They stop buying from France, and France stops buying from them. But we still are dependent on countries that are adversarial to us, including China. So what does Trump do in his negotiation with China? He marginalizes them. China had this playing card. Well, if you don't go our way, then what we're going to do is make it harder for you to get rare earths. So what did Trump do? He made rare earth deals with everybody else. And what does that do? That weakens China's bargaining position. It weakens their hand, and Trump can leverage them to get the deal he wants. So his vision for the future does not include being dependent on China. His vision for the Middle East does not allow a place for Hamas. So what does that have to do with domestic politics? Well, the Democrats right now are marginalizing themselves, aren't they? How are they doing that? Well, currently they're standing up for drug runners. Prior to that, they were big on the trans issue. Prior to that, you can go on and on. They were all about open borders, and even Hakeem Jeffries had to admit that President Trump gets credit for closing down the border, and that's better for the United States, right? The Democrats have taken all these far left positions and marginalized themselves in the process. So that means they're not as important. Now, look, you can look at the polls right now. You can look at Trump's approval rating on affordability. It's a big issue because of the inflation of government and government spending over the last 2 decades. Purchasing power is weak, and results are tough to come by in a short period of time. We can go into Republicans waiting too long to pass the tax bill. That was a wasted 6 months that they're paying for now. But the point is, 2026, the economy will be better. But how does Trump deal with the Democrats who continue to marginalize themselves? And my answer is Trump has to take his greater vision and go directly to voters. And what do I mean by that? He can't sit in Washington, D.C. and argue from the Oval Office about what he's doing with the press. He's doing a lot. He's got a lot of initiatives. It ties him down because he's got to be there to work. He literally works 12 hours a day. But he's allowing the Democrats to marginalize themselves. What he has to do is leave DC. And again, I talk about this in my article at Substack, or you can find it at Facebook, or you can find it at tomdell.com. But what he has to do is leave DC in 2026. He should have a convention of sorts, but he also should go out and do town halls in the swing states and other states. And I don't mean MAGA events. He can continue to do MAGA events. That's great. But what he should do is hold events with independent voters in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, and these states, Pennsylvania, that are swing states, and sit down with independent voters and talk directly with them. He can handle that. Biden couldn't handle an unscripted event. Harris couldn't handle an unscripted event. I don't even think Newsom can handle an unscripted event, but Trump can. And he needs to sit down and have the patience to take his message directly to those voters. He needs to get in the news by making news. Trump makes news readily, and he has different avenues to talk to voters, whether it's Twitter or Truth Social or other things where he can go directly to them. But the message isn't getting of what he's doing is not getting to independent voters right now or the youth. You should have a youth town hall. When I was chairman of the California Republican Party, I had a youth town hall, and it made the news in California. He should take his show on the road, not have these big stadium events, but have intimate events where he is talking issues to voters and saying, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. This is why the economy is rebounding. And here's how it's going to be meaningful to you. And by doing these events in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Wisconsin, those 7 states, Nevada, on and on and on, what he's not only doing is getting in the news, but he's getting on local news. And he should do local radio. And in that process, he proves that he cares about people. He reaches voters where they live, and he reaches voters that aren't watching Fox News or aren't watching CNN. My book over my shoulder, The Divided Era, we have divided media. And a whole bunch of America doesn't get its news in a fashion that a White House press conference or a White House or an Oval Office press conference doesn't facilitate those people learning those things. So, in summary, the point being, and what he should do is allow the Democrats to continue to marginalize themselves. Then he needs to go out and explain his greater vision to a bigger coalition of people, of independent voters, by reaching them in manner in which they haven't been reached before. Not the traditional big event, not the traditional of ABC News or CBS or CNN or Fox, not the traditional of the new traditional of Twitter and other things, but in-person events that bring him as a person to them and makes a difference in their lives and how they view government. And do that with the youth, because he won with the youth, and they're beginning to sour on him because they're impatient, understandably so. Anyway, that's my opening statement. You can check out my Substack at Thomas Del Beccaro. The article is Trump should use his foreign policy strategy to deal with Democrats in 2026. Up next is my interview with our difference maker of the week, who is Brigadier General Blaine Holt. And I want to thank Ex American News for covering us on Sunday nights. I want to thank worldviewtube.com for covering us on Saturdays and Sundays, AUN TV for carrying us on Sundays. Of course, you can get all of the shows at politicalvanguard.com and on YouTube and Rumble. And we'll be right back. Thanks so very much. Welcome back, everyone, to Politics in Perspective. Thanks again to Ex American News for carrying us on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock, and worldviewtube.com carrying us both on Saturday and Sunday, and AUN TV on Monday nights. So I'm pleased every couple of months or so, a good friend of mine, Brigadier General retired Blaine Holt, joins us for a foreign policy update. When I first thought about this, I thought, okay, we can dive into Venezuela, and then of course, Blaine, Venezuela kind of blew up in the face of somebody, and that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the Endgame. So, as a former NATO official for the United States, welcome back to the program. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's good to be with you. Wow, what a fabulous news week we're having. It's this is the stuff that you can't make up in at home, and no screenwriter would accept this. They call it too unbelievable when you think about what's happened with the Venezuela fracas.
No doubt. Okay, listen, let's start though with we have a new picture for you. Tell us about your podcast, Dangerous Intellectuals.
Thanks. It's a project that I've launched. It's kind of an experiment stage right now. I've got 13 episodes. 13 is coming out on Monday. And this is a podcast, which is a 50-minute discussion. And it's on a variety of subject areas. Could be on geopolitics, could be art, science, entrepreneurship, technology. We've done a big series on fifth generation warfare. And the big common denominator of everything is I have guests who are not only so far outside the box, they don't even know that there are boxes. They're very much free individual thinkers. There's some debates going on in some of these episodes, and so far I'm just thrilled. I'm thrilled with the response, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
No doubt about it. Okay, good. So, Venezuela, as you know, this week the media has turned into once again rules of engagement, rules of war crimes, and foreign policy experts. They're all there to tell us what it's like to pull the trigger and when we're allowed to pull the trigger. I wanted to talk big picture Venezuela, but uh, a couple of things. Obviously, I want your view on what's going on, the controversy. But I tell you what really pissed me off, General, is this. The first day they were making judgments and did not have the facts. They didn't know what the video looks like. They didn't know whether people got back in the road or not. They just rushed the judgment. And that kind of stuff angers me. I'm sure it gets under your skin. You had to handle it as a profession. So what do you make of the controversy?
In a cold civil war, this is exactly what you expect. They have pre-made scandals and controversies all lined up, and all they wait for is an event where there's a close match and they modify their plan accordingly. So we go tag a drug runner boat, and they then 5 weeks later magically disconnected. I'm sure they're completely unrelated. The seditious six get out there and try to sow discord in the military and say, don't follow orders if you think they're illegal, and all this happy garbage. Then we get to the reveal of what they were after the whole time, which is this horrendous warmongering Department of War secretary who says kill them all in Hollywood fashion. Well, when that first came out, I knew that, well, that's just garbage. None of that's true. And why do I know that? Well, I know that because the Secretary of War is running the largest enterprise on the planet as a CEO. There is no close second, nothing. And the idea that he or his four-star combatant commander have time to sort out on the battlefield who tactically lives and who tactically dies, that's not how it works. Now, I know that, but why get out there in front of that? Let's just let it evolve. And we saw yesterday when they took it all apart, there wasn't a there there. And what we can see though is oh, well then what were you seditious six people doing? And is this all related? And who put you up to this? So it's going to flip now. But here's the cool part, because I know you want to get to the bigger picture on Venezuela. It's all related. It's all related. You have members on both sides of the aisle that are defending drug runners. And the drug running thing, while it's important enough to defeat this, because since 1980 we've lost 1.5 million Americans to.
Can you stop right there? How many did
I'm
we lose?
stopping.
How many did we lose in Vietnam?
56,000.
How many did we lose in World War One?
Oh, I don't have that number readily
The answer,
available.
though, is that both of these answers, all of these answers, World War Two, whatever.
Yeah.
Our most
Nothing's
dangerous war
close.
was the Civil
Yeah.
War because Americans died on both sides. We
Right.
lost 700,000 plus.
Yeah.
Go ahead
Nothing
and
close.
say that number again that you just gave.
Since nine,
1.5.
not 1.5 million since 1980, and 70,000 a year happening right now just to the fentanyl thing. And so that's predicate enough to do this operation, but it's so much more than that. It's so much bigger than that. And this is why we get to these things where, they decry warmongering and violations of law of armed conflict. You have people in DC who are compromised. You have folks that are defending drug runners, but that's part of the agitation, because the more and more pressure that we put on the drug cartels, you're actually putting pressure on every illicit activity on planet Earth. I want you to think about it this way. If I took all the world's illegality, human trafficking, money laundering, prostitution, kid trafficking, organ harvesting, theft, manipulation of property rights, whatever, around the world, and you made a Jenga tower out of it, a big, huge Jenga tower. Well, that base block, that very bottom block, is the cartels. They enable everything. They're the ones that move the money. They're the ones that train the terror cells. They're the ones that import them and bring them into this country. They buy off, bribe, extort politicians, staffers, lobbyists. They infiltrate governments at the local, state, and federal level. So the president picking this campaign is yanking on that bottom Jenga block. Well, that's infinite amount of rice bowls that are getting kicked over, and it goes up to every element you can possibly name, including the World Economic Forum, the Chinese Communist Party, the City of London Banking Consortium, private shadow bankers, our own bankers here, politicians. They're the anybody who's out there defending the innocent fishermen moving drugs around. I want to know what their motivations are. I want to know how they get their money.
Okay, so years ago, Harrison Ford did a movie related to drugs in Mexico. I'm
Great actor,
searching
bad
for.
pilot.
Okay, you remember the movie, right?
Yeah,
And they go in and they kill a drug lord in, I believe, Colombia. Remember?
yeah, that's right.
Does America do this kind of stuff? And I guess the question that's going to be answered is, should America be doing that kind of stuff right now? Should we do a look? I get the boats. This is simple stuff. And for the Democrats using the word fishermen or, oh, they were just trying to get back on the boat. Or
Yeah,
they're not. This is, I love this one. The getaway driver is guilty of a felony if someone dies of
right,
murder.
right,
But the driver of a boat that could kill 25,000 people or more
right.
somehow is just an innocent person. But what's your view? I mean, should we be taking the fight to them like this? And should we do a land strike and kill a drug lord?
So for me, if I was advising the president, I would I would only make the death of a drug lord a collateral damage event or a byproduct of an operation. Here's why. First off, we're at danger here at home. The cartels are represented with terror cells on every single main street in the United States. And so if you want to get into the assassination game, we take out three of theirs, and all of a sudden we start seeing high-vis assassinations here. And that really doesn't achieve your strategic goal. So then what would I advise? I'd advise um, what we have done. I think it's brilliant. It's a very, very brilliant campaign. We brought in the United States Navy, including the Gerald R. Ford. We got 15,000 forces sitting at Puerto Rico. And what is this? And then we don't touch anybody. We don't do a political assassination. We don't drop in the 82nd Airborne. What we do is we get everybody panicked, crazy. So all the drug lords, Maduro, Scheinbaum, Petro in Colombia, they're all freaking out because they're looking at the Navy going, "Holy crap, I'm going to get Noriegaed." And I've made Noriega a verb, by the way. And so what happens there is they get to their phones, they get to their computers, and they start screaming bloody murder for all of the billionaires around the world that they feel owe them, and they start crying out. So what do? We use all of our beautiful technology, which I can't speak a lot about, but it sucks up all this intelligence. And now Scott Bessent has a very good human terrain and mosaic about where the dirty people are, who's dirty in DC, who's getting paid off. And now Scott Bessent's going to go about his work. And so you see a lot of theater, Tom Clancy theater with cigarette boats dropping. You might see an ODA team, special operations insertion team, go and blow up some labs or somebody's mansion or super yacht. But all that's going to do is keep turning up the boiling water on the bad guys, and they'll react accordingly, and then we'll react accordingly. And it gets back to where you and I had our first conversation. This is not conventional warfare. This is fifth generation warfare. So if I can put the Ford out there and be in your enemy's head rent free, well, then so be it. Then that works, and it's much more efficient and costs far less money, and then U.S. sailors don't die.
So then, overall, the movie was clear and present danger. That you had some Democrat, I'm forgetting where he's worth, that Americans aren't at risk. There's no such thing as a narco terrorist. So, how clear and present are these guys' danger? How bad for America is Colombia as their narco activities? And we see the deaths, but please describe it in full for us.
As we hit their supply chains, as we damage their assets, as we start to create ever increasing cost impositions on what they're doing, you will see things, some things that don't make sense until you really dive deep on them, like MI6 telling us we're not going to share intelligence with you anymore about that stuff. That's like, okay, well then I guess you're guilty. I guess you have some illicit activities you're protecting. But on Main Street is where my concerns are because you've had 4 years of open borders. You've got terror cells all over the place. You've got demonstrated coordination between Venezuela, Russia, China, Iran, and Hezbollah. If you say the word Hezbollah, you may as well be saying the word Venezuela as well. And Hezbollah is one of the best at money laundering, logistics movements for illicit activity in the United States and with the cartels. So now what's the outcome? The danger to us is, do we see more or more assassinations? Do we see a terror event on Main Street in Nebraska? Do we see a fire in a building? And we can't quite put the pieces together, but there's now a definite trend. And that's the danger. And it could be your grid, it could be your water supply, it could be a lot of different things. I think we'll see some of that activity in the main cities first, but I think we'll also see it in the smaller ones as well. You know, here in the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of drug supply chain interchanges, and I think these are places that are ripe for violence against Americans.
So then what is the end game for Venezuela? I don't I don't see an invasion anytime soon or ever. So what's the end game?
The end game is to, again, back to my Jenga metaphor, pull the block out, increase the cost in positions, get them all fighting each other. Maduro either leaves of his own volition or he expires in a bunker someplace. But then so you create the chaos. So you're not gonna see this regime change thing through. What you'll do is after they've really gone at each other and you watch the Cuban economy go with it, you'll have all kinds of diplomatic opportunities to support a different bunch of folks coming in. Maybe help the country move along if they move in the right direction. But you would carrot and stick diplomacy Venezuela back into a reasonable global citizen with the assurance that they'll never see the Chinese, the Russians, or the Iranians on their landmass again.
So does Maduro go or not under Trump?
He's he's really in between the dog and the fire hydrant. You could call him really stupid for not gathering up his family and making for the hills. Here's why he really can't do that. How does he make a move towards the door without somebody pulling a bullet in his head? You know, he last night he demanded $200 million, and that wasn't even really so unappealing to President Trump. It was really his other demand, which was, oh, and 100 of my best friends are going to have immunity and come with me. And President Trump's like, nah, we're going to kill all those guys. So just get used to that idea. If you want to die with them, that's your business. But but what this does is now you've got bad guys around Maduro who are going, isn't the isn't isn't that bounty on your head 50 million bucks? Huh. Well, I wonder how loyal I am to you. So again, it gets back to this. You're creating fights amongst the ants. You're two colonies of ants, and here's one piece of watermelon. Go. And that's how this is gonna this is how that's how this is gonna work.
All right. So okay, destabilize, turn them on themselves, have them walk out or worse from their perspective, and then support them in the sense of bringing them back into the community. That's my takeaway. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's how I see it going. You don't leave that patient open. You got to sew it back up together. We have to go see the beautiful Caracas that we saw before 1998. And it can be that way, but not before a whole pile of billionaires' mansions in Venezuela end up magically disappearing, vaporizing. Something happened to them. I don't know. There was an electric current problem. This thing burned up. Weird.
All right, where are we on Hamas and peace in the Middle East?
Well, it's going exactly the way we thought. Hamas, apparently, as it turns out, is not a good actor, and they're not really to be depended on. So they're going to be leaving the planet the hard way. But the 21 point peace plan is going to remain intact. That's the bigger prize here. And the Arab nations will stay in alignment. We will work on Israeli politics, hanging in there. But the IDF has pretty much got a blank check to go on in there and wipe out anybody who even breathes the word Hamas. And right now, my understanding is there's a lot of Palestinians pointing in the direction of, hey, they're over there, they're over there, um, because they understand that the world is ready to pour all kinds of money down on Gaza, rebuild it, do good things for people, but it can't happen as long as these thugs try to shoot their way out of this thing. But now that the Arab nations are on sides, thank you, Jared Kushner, what that means is there's no life support for those thugs. So there's going to be a little more war. It's gonna happen, but the IDF will close the deal down. You'll see the mainstream media here cry out that the genocide is just continuing, and why are they attacking hospitals and elementary schools? And I saw a kid die, and they'll try to keep spoon feeding everybody that, but the plan is good, and it's going to go through. This is a good plan.
So, in my opening segment, I talked about Trump's foreign policy strategy of marginalizing Hamas, but also at the same time, so it a lot of times in foreign policy or in politics or even in the boardroom, if you sustain the fight of two people looking directly in their eyes saying, I have to win, no, you win, I win, no, you win, you don't get anywhere. Part of Trump's strategy was creating a greater vision for everyone to look towards while he's marginalizing Hamas,
Right.
and allowing Iran and bombing Iran. And that allows the cutters of the world and other Arab states to, okay, we're not as worried about as Iran. We can take a risk with peace. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I would say that to get the Arab world on sides, it actually Israeli politics took a little bit of a hit here, and I'll explain. So before the hit on Iran, the Iranians were screaming bloody murder, or the Israelis were screaming bloody murder to President Trump. If America doesn't come into this thing, if you don't do something, we're going to have to go bomb the crap out of Iran, and we don't know which weapon we'll use, but it's going to be a bad one. And so the Arab world was getting very excited about that and going, if they do a crowd pleaser on Iran, we're all going to be going to a very bad place. So so what President Trump came up with, again, brilliant strategy and perfectly executed by our United States Air Force, which is, okay, I'm going to go tell the Arab states I'm going to go do this. I am going to put a tourniquet on Iran by knocking out any type of nuclear development that they could be angling towards a bomb. And then I'm going to turn and look at you, Israel, and go, okay, that's fixed. It's over. We're not doing this. There's no need to go to any further lengths here. If the Iranian people want a new government, they'll have to go shoot their way into a new government themselves. We're done here. Um, that was really great because then what it did was it really severed Iran from its proxies. There's no meaningful support coming out of Iran for any of them. It took away a lot of predicates for the Israelis to really escalate. We're seeing a little escalation in the terms of Hezbollah, but I think it's very manageable. And it set the stage for this massive deal, this 21 point deal in Gaza. It's a multi-level game here, but the Freedom Doritos flying over Iran and dropping bombs the way they did it and how they did it, elemental to the success that we're seeing in the Middle East right now. And if you've noticed, Erdogan in Turkey, he's shut his pie hole. He's not complaining about Israel at all. He's actually starting to look a little bit more like a model NATO citizen, which is what we need. And President Trump was very smart to get Erdogan and the Emir of Qatar into the conversation to help work it to its end. It was brilliant. It's not anything that the last administration would have done. They would have, nobody talked to nobody, and that's what we want.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the last good Democrat administration on geopolitics, but we'll have to wait a long time for an answer for that. Which brings us to Ukraine. Isn't China happy that Russia still got the world on edge. Is Putin winning because he's outlasting the negotiations with anybody? Is there a resolution? What's your thoughts?
The only thing stopping Ukraine from closing up this horrible, horrid chapter of history is the European leaders. Putin's ready for a deal. Putin and Xi Jinping, regardless of what people think, don't get along at all. Um, the Chinese have pretty much backstabbed the Russians on just about every deal, and some of the materiel support they've sent has not worked out in the supply chains very well. Um, but that being stated, Putin is a smart man, and he's always going to use China as a wedge if he can. China, because of the US media stance on China and how we all need to have a villain at all times in our lives, and we're always spoon-fed every day. China and the dragon could swallow us and swallow Taiwan and swallow everybody at any potential chance because they're the richest nation in the world. They're the smartest nation in the world. They think strategically. 5,000 years of history. They're the best. China is not even relevant right now because they're trying to figure out who is the leader of China. Xi Jinping is now in an ornamental status since the fourth plenum. He is where there's four factions in China duking it out for who's going to actually be in charge. Xi tried to cut a deal with one of his generals on the side, was told to get lost. And the Chinese are just asking President Trump for a little bit of time to get their crap together, and then they'll produce a leader that's a reformist. His name is Hu Chunhua, and I'm certain that probably around the April timeframe, we'll see how she had some sort of magic sickness, and Hu Chunhua is going to save the day and become the next Deng Xiaoping. And they have to do that because they got to quell a building potential revolution in their nation. The Chinese are not well. And so I don't find them to be relevant in the Ukraine conversation. Ukraine does not have a military way out of this. There are not enough weapons or money on the planet for them to reverse this. It wasn't that way in 2022, but I wouldn't have recommended warfare then either because Europe's broke. It worships at the climate altar. It's been invaded by Islamic extremists who want to erase European culture. Europe itself is rolling back all kinds of liberties and freedoms, which makes me wonder, with no leg in the stool at all, meaning peace, security, and value, or prosperity and values, why are we even in NATO? And especially if you're going to push back on every peace overture that President Trump wants to do. So in Miami right now, we see that there's a closed, sealed session with the Ukrainians, and I think they're getting their last pep talk by the president's admin negotiators to say, this is your take it or leave it moment because we're actually going to pack up our stuff and go. And you're going to be on your own if you think you're going to fight this out with your European buddies. Go right ahead, but you're probably going to lose a seaport, not be a sovereign country, and it's going to not work out for you. Meanwhile, that's a nasty corruption scandal you've got brewing in Kiev, and you've got parliamentarians calling for your heads. Oh, they kicked down a bunch of doors in Brussels as well, including the offices of Kaya Kallas and Ursula von der Leyen, to search them for evidence after the arrest of my friend from NATO, Federica Morgherina, that I used to work with. Now she has gone to jail. She's out, but she'll be seeing a criminal court case soon, as will so many others. There's your tapestry.
All right, the time we have left, tell me why America's national security depends on broad technological ecosystems. What does that even mean? Not single breakthroughs.
So you've probably heard in the markets about this building AI bubble that's about to pop. And the article that I'm writing, quite shamelessly, I must admit, because I've got my own startup technology company. And that what I'm arguing is that when you load up your investment dollars into a one-trick pony called AI, you could get burned massively because of technology risk in this age of exponential technology and the singularity. You're seeing it also in the data center space. They're all building massive, massive data centers as fast as they can. The problem is water and electricity get taken away. Wait a minute, what if technology just replaces every single one of those rack servers with something much more efficient, which is happening right now, and you see trillions in capex just flitter away? Those things happen. So our argument
They do happen.
is
Think about a CD and oh, I have CDs. These will be good forever.
I know
No, they're
that's it.
not.
I invested in
Yeah.
CDs. That's right. or hey, look at me in cryptocurrency. I picked the one crypto. I picked the one. I've got all my money in that one crypto. It's like, that's gonna hurt. So the point is cross discipline, multi fields of expertise, cross pollinating in an age of a singularity is a far better thing to invest in because you're diversifying your technology risk. And if something that you have in the basket as a company looks like it's being obsoleted, well, send the scientist back to work and get the other thing that is doing well. And so that's the company I'm building, Zerient Incorporated. That's what we're embarking on, and we have a, new R&D concept which I'm leading called Factor X, and we have over 40 scientists not on payroll, but have memberships to this little science think tank. And rather than the standard, here's your cubicle, there's your work, go work your butt off until you come out with something. No, we don't do that. We do cross pollination. So the hydrogen guy should be talking to the data science guy who talks to the advanced materials guy, and they're going to have a meeting with the graphene woman and come up with a new gonculator, and then we'll go ahead and sell the gonculator.
So what role does in America does the government have in raising awareness to this issue? I mean, you're basically saying, it's a very old saying, but it
Mhm.
applies, all your eggs in one basket. You're warning against that. So what
Right.
role does the government have here?
So the government has the thing it could do to be helpful, and then there's the standard thing it does to be very, very unhelpful. Currently, in its current position, it has been that way for 30 years. The government stands by its monopolies, the defense industrial base and other contractors, and it picks winners and losers in anybody else. What they need to do is get out of that business entirely, and what they should be doing is looking at an industrial base that needs to be healthy. That doesn't mean you flood things with subsidy dollars to say, we want data centers, so we're going to make a quadrillion dollars available for data centers. No, 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 no. What you need to do is um, put out or encourage industry to be diversified, to have many different bites of the apple, and you need to spread the love around rather than your big six contractors, and say we're going to have a diversity of companies, not six, but 600, and
You
we're going
mean
to
you
make
mean
these opportunities available.
when you say spread it, meaning US dollars going to other companies, but doesn't uh
Yeah, take my
democracy
gonculator example. The okay, Lockheed's selling us this missile. Yeah, but now we need to buy a gonculator. Okay, let's just go to Lockheed. They can make one. It's like, but is that in our best interest? Do we really need that calculator from Lockheed? Or could we say, here's a broad area announcement. We're actually blocking the primes out of this. Now, they say they do that right now with the small business investment program. They don't. What they do is they look at your calculator as the small business guy and they go, yeah, but you don't have any financial muscle, so you couldn't build us a calculator. I'll tell you what, we'll pair you up with a prime. And then what they do is when you get paired with the prime, that prime rips you off for all your intellectual property. They spit you out to the curb, and then the monopoly perpetuates. So what the government could do is be better referees, like on a football game. Um, Tell industry what you would like, a well diversified ecosystem of technologies that can come to market fast. But when you encourage the monopolies, what you do is you build F-35 programs that are unresponsive to the market. They become overly large behemoths. They get caught up in all the tape that is DC, and you don't have the agility to move against your enemy with the things that are relevant. So if we're going to go buy another aircraft carrier, that's $13 billion we could have spent on something that's relevant to today's fifth generation war.
okay, but my feeling of discouragement in this is something bad has to happen to open their eyes up enough.
I agree with
Yes,
you.
no.
And that was my article before the one you just talked about. And the bad thing that can happen is the cartels on and all the terror groups in the United States turn on us, and we have a real massive problem here that a city gets EMP'd or it loses its water supply or something really terrible happens. And what we do is we get caught flat-footed going, well, why don't we have these technologies? Why aren't we
Yeah,
involved in this?
exactly.
Why aren't and that's the bad thing that can happen. Or even worse, Back to the Future. We go to Cold War 2.0. You have these craven Europeans who are arguing for preemptive action against Russians. Ursula just stood up and said, "No, the real enemy is the Chinese. Let's go get them." I explained where the Chinese are. Um, but we're about to see a big financial problem in this country. It's really irreversible at this point. If you don't believe me, then study the bond market and you'll figure it out. But but but
I
but when
talk
that
about it. I
happens, they need a bad guy to blame this on. And that's where they want the old Cold War back. The problem is President Trump just keeps running around the world and making peace break out, and that just pisses them off. They're like,
Yes,
dude, that is not what we're doing. we are go-
ex-
we are going to blow up our debt-based system, and we're going to blame Vlad. That's what we're doing. You got to get on board. President Trump is like, oh, that means millions and millions of people die. No, we're not doing it. And
I,
I'm making a caricature, but that's where we're at.
I agree with you in significant part. Okay, uh, quick answer. We're out of time. I got to ask you
Yep.
about a very divisive issue. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I'm going to talk to you before this comes to pass.
Okay.
Who's in the national championship game?
Oh, that's going to be Georgia and Indiana.
How did you get Georgia in there? What a shocker! Y-
It is a shocker. It is a shocker. You watch that Bama game tomorrow. You watch that Bama game. Georgia and Indiana. And the reason I say Indiana is I'm actually poking fun at my wife who can hear me right now because she went to the University of Indiana.
Hey, they have a damn good program,
They
and that
do.
coach, and that coach proves that you don't have to go to LSU to win a national championship. I hope that's what he proves. Blaine, always love having you on. You're succinct but thorough. If I don't talk to you before Christmas on air, have a Merry Christmas, and we'll
Merry
be right
Christmas.
and we'll be right back with more politics in perspective. Welcome back, everyone, to Politics in Perspective. I hope you enjoyed that from Blaine Holt. He's a bit of a fire hydrant when you ask him a question, but he is still succinct and very thoughtful. You can go to politicalvanguard.com and see some of our prior interviews. And he's been spot on in so many ways, and always love hearing from him. Just a reminder, you can get all of my stuff at Political Vanguard or tomdell.com, and especially my books in this Christmas season, The Divided Era and the Lessons of the American Civilization. In the time we have left today, I want to talk about the Tennessee election. There was a lot of talk about what went on. You've heard the fact that Republicans aren't as enthusiastic as Democrats. That's true in every off-year election. You win the White House, no matter what party it is, and you're a little bit complacent, and the other party gets scared based on what you did, and then they, have a greater presence in the election. That's usually 2 years away, but we had these special elections this time around, and governor races in California. We saw over 11 million people vote. I did a TV show where they asked me, well, how many votes do you think will happen? And I said 10 million, and they thought that's crazy. It's only going to be six. No, it turned out to be 11. Even I was short. I still won on The Price is Right, but it demonstrated that enthusiasm goes to the party out of office. But I want to concentrate on a slightly different issue, because you've also heard them talk about the fact that uh, Republican voters don't come out as much when Trump's not there. And you've also seen polling that says 87% of Republicans still support the president, which is higher than the support that Obama had among Democrats, or Bush had among Democrats, or Biden had among, or sorry, Bush had among Republicans, and Biden had among Democrats at this similar stage in their presidencies. Biden, of course, lost it, didn't get reelected, but he was losing it over time. So, what does Tennessee have to do with all of this? Well, you saw the Tennessee election here, and what happened? The guy won by 10 points or 9 points in a district that Trump won by 22. And then the question becomes, so what does that really tell us? Well, off your election, okay, the Democrats more excited. By the way, the Democrats voted for someone who's just this side of crazy, all these crazy positions, not to mention the fact she hated her district or the people in it or country music. The Democrats these days are far more motivated. But there's two things I want to talk about that need to be picked up upon and Republicans need to realize. In the olden days, 20 years ago, Republicans used to do voting early, absentee voting, and the Democrats dominated election day. That's no longer true. It is the Republicans who come out on election day. That's a risky strategy because some people can't make it on the last day. Things come up. That's one issue. But the bigger issue that I want to talk about is this love for Trump and what isn't going to happen in 2026. Trump gets 87% among Republicans. You know who doesn't get 87% among Republicans? Republicans in Congress do not have an 87% approval rating among Republicans. It's much lower. They don't feel, they love Trump because he fights. They don't believe that Republicans in Congress fight. That is why in these elections, without Trump on the ballot, the midterm before, what you just saw in Tennessee and what you're going to see in 2026 is Republicans running for Congress do not do as well because Republican voters do not believe Republicans in Congress stand up and fight. And so 2026, the canary in the gold mine, the warning is that Republicans have to come to grips with the fact that Republicans do not view their congressional people, by and large, fight hard enough. So I expect the economy to do better in 2026. Why? Because we are coming off the sugar high of government spending. The economy's adjusting to the tax cuts, to the lower regulations, and all of that takes 6 to 9 months. Starting when? Well, deregulation in earnest started around February or March of this year. Tax cut, I mentioned earlier, the Republicans wait too damn long for that. And so it was put into law in July, should have been done in February. There's a delay. All of this points to good economic times in February and March of next year. We should have strong growth that will help in the November election. But the absence of Trump on the ballot will still exist. Republicans need to fight between now and then to earn a higher level of support than they have right now among voters if they expect to hold on to the House. Now, they won a big victory in the Supreme Court with Texas. They're going to get a victory with Florida. They're going to find 6 or 7 seats, 8 seats, maybe 9 or 10 from all this redistricting that'll go their way. California's up in the air. We talked to the lead attorney in California on Prop 50 and where the Democrats are. I think there's no doubt that the Democrats did something illegal here, but that doesn't mean the Supreme Court's going to agree with me. And the Supreme Court decision in Texas said you should have given us an alternative map to show us how it is that Texas was done improperly. You didn't do that. If you want to read the opinion, go look at that. They didn't do that in California either. Now, I'm not sure it matters in California, but I also can't guarantee that Californians are going to win an appeal because the Supreme Court decision in Texas said we are essentially loath to get into last minute political fights. And it's pretty last minute in California. So, point being, the warning in Texas is that Republican voters do not like Republicans in Congress as much as they like Trump. And that emphasis needs to be made. Now let's talk about California. First of all, let's talk about Gavin Newsom for a minute. There's a poll out among Democrats that has Gavin Newsom, this is Emerson, as to who should be the next president. And we bring it up to you right now. You can see it. Newsom 36, Pete Buttigieg 16, Kamala Harris at 9. I've said many times, I'll say it again here. She's not running for president next time around. There's no way that she can get the nomination if Newsom gets the block of California delegates. The reason why Harris dropped out the last time and didn't run in 2020 is because she was running fourth in California. Well, she's going to be running worse than that because Gavin Newsom's going to soak up the California votes. So Newsom is still there. That's a danger to us all because he's the weakest governor. He has no capacity to create consensus. He has no boardroom ability to bring people together and make a difference. But today I wanted to talk about the governor's race. And we're about to show you a poll of all the people in California, who's leading. Well, who is leading? Look at that poll. Everybody's in the low teens. There's a ton of people running, a ton of Democrats, and two prominent Republicans, Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton. And nobody is at 20%. I've never seen a big state poll where nobody is a clear front runner, not even close. I mean, there's no one in the 20s that are leading the others in the teens. This is unbelievable. This is an amazing opportunity for Republicans. My viewers need to remember that California has this jungle primary. All those names you're seeing, they're all going to be on the ballot. There's probably going to be 30 or 40 people running for governor. There is no primary in the sense of one party. You're Republican, you vote for these people. You're Democrat, you vote for these other people. No, they're all on the same ballot. And you literally get the ballot and you have to search for your person. And it takes a while. And depending, not all ballots are the same. They get, they random and, some people will get one random formation of those 40 plus names and blah, blah, blah. But as we sit here today, obviously no one, and I mean no one, is a clear front runner, especially among the Democrats. Katie Porter had her moment in the sun, and that didn't work out too well for her. Eric Swalwell decided he's going to run, but he's got a lot of baggage. And we'll see whether a Republican can get in that top two, because what matters is making that top two. Because the last time around, it was two, or like for US Senate and otherwise, it's two Democrats that make it into the top two, and then there's no debate. The person in second doesn't challenge the person in first among Democrats because that angers Democrat hierarchy, and you don't really have an election. But will one of those Republicans emerge, and will the Democrats remain so divided that nobody can get to even 16, 17%? We'll have to see. That's Politics in Perspective for this week. We'll see you next time around. Thanks again to Ex American News, worldviewtube.com, AUNTV. You can catch me at politicalvanguard.com. Once again, join my Substack. Go to Tom Dell, buy my books, Lessons of the American Civilization, Divided Era, Make Great Christmas Presents, and we'll see you next time around. Thanks so much for joining us.